You know what's strange? Most budgeting advice sounds perfectly reasonable until you try to use it with an irregular income. On paper, it all makes sense. Track your income, list your expenses, save the rest. But when your income doesn't arrive on a schedule, that advice starts to feel disconnected, almost like it was written for someone else's life. And if you've ever felt like budgeting just doesn't work for you, this video isn't here to fix you. It's here to explain why the system itself doesn't fit. If your income changes month to month, budgeting creates a very specific kind of stress. Not loud stress, not panic. It's quieter than that. It's the stress of never knowing how confident you're allowed to feel. One month you feel fine. You pay everything, you breathe. The next month, nothing dramatic happens, but you're suddenly more careful with groceries. You pause before buying small things. You check your balance more often than you admit. Nothing went wrong, but something doesn't feel stable. And traditional budgeting doesn't help that feeling. In fact, it often makes it worse. Traditional budgets are built on one assumption, that money arrives predictably. Same amount, same time, every month. That assumption changes everything, because when income is predictable, a budget becomes a map. You can plan forward without hesitation. Rent, bills, savings, spending. Everything has a place, and that place rarely changes. If that's your situation, budgeting feels empowering. If it's not, budgeting feels fragile. With irregular income, the first thing that breaks is confidence. Not numbers, confidence. Because every budget quietly asks the same question: can you trust your future income? And when the answer is, I don't know, the whole system feels unstable. You're not bad with money, you're cautious, for good reason. But most budgeting advice doesn't account for caution. It treats uncertainty like a personal failure instead of a financial reality. Here's something most people don't notice. Budgets reset every month. New numbers, new expectations, new targets. For someone with irregular income, that reset can feel exhausting because you're not starting fresh, you're starting unsure. You don't know if this is a good month or a tight month yet, so you hesitate. You delay decisions. You mentally hold your breath. And none of that shows up on a spreadsheet. Tracking expenses is supposed to give clarity, but with irregular income, it often does the opposite. Because you're not just tracking what you spent, you're constantly judging whether you should have spent it. Was this okay, or was this a mistake? And the worst part, you often don't find out until later. So even reasonable spending can feel risky, and that turns budgeting into a source of low-grade anxiety. Traditional budgeting focuses on math. Irregular income is emotional. That's the gap. When income fluctuates, money decisions are never just about affordability. They're about timing, safety, and future uncertainty. Can I afford this now, or will I regret it later? Budgets don't answer that question well. They assume the future is already known. Let's talk about good months. Good months are dangerous with traditional budgets because when income is higher, the budget suddenly looks generous. You feel capable, relieved, maybe even optimistic. So you loosen up, not irresponsibly, just humanly. But then the next month arrives quietly, and it doesn't match. Now you're not just adjusting numbers, you're adjusting expectations. And that emotional swing is exhausting. Budgets don't smooth that out, they amplify it. People with irregular income often blame themselves. I just need more discipline. I need to stick to the plan. But discipline isn't the missing piece. Flexibility is. Traditional budgets punish flexibility. They treat changes as mistakes, but with irregular income, change is normal. A system that treats normal behavior like failure will always feel stressful. One of the biggest problems with traditional budgeting isn't obvious. It's how many decisions it forces you to make. Every purchase becomes a calculation. Every expense requires justification. That constant mental effort drains you. Not financially, mentally. And when you're tired, even good systems stop working. The solution isn't better tracking, or tighter rules, or more motivation. It's a different way of thinking about money, one that prioritizes stability over optimization. Traditional budgeting tries to make your money efficient. Irregular income needs to make your life feel safe. Those are different goals. Instead of asking, how do I maximize every dollar? The better question is, how do I reduce stress even when income changes? That shift matters. Because the real problem isn't spending too much, it's living in constant uncertainty. Most finance advice comes from stable income perspectives, not because they're wrong, but because they're limited. Irregular income isn't rare anymore. Freelancers, creators, contractors, gig workers. But the systems haven't caught up, so people quietly assume they're doing something wrong. They're not. If budgeting hasn't worked for you, that doesn't mean you failed. It means the tool wasn't built for your situation. And once you accept that, something changes. The shame fades. The pressure eases. You stop forcing yourself into systems that don't fit. Money management isn't about control. It's about calm. Feeling like you can handle the next month, even if you don't know exactly what it holds. That's the kind of stability that actually matters. If you've ever felt like budgeting makes you more stressed instead of less, you're not broken. You're just using a system that assumes a life you don't live. And in the next video, we'll talk about what works better, not louder, not stricter, just more honest. Thanks for being here.